So in this week's video, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into a slightly controversial subject, which I've seen floating around on YouTube and Reddit and even Discord. Now, as much as I hate to go to Reddit and it's a hyper toxic place with a lot of misinformation at times, it does have a lot of chatter and it also does have plenty of leaks. And that's all about the conflicting information when it comes to the pay to win in Chrono Odyssey and their connection to MPixel, as well as anything connecting the company to bad history, or kind of that's what you would call it. But what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to break that down, give you the facts, give you the information you need going into Chrono Odyssey to know what the testing will be like, what the launch will be like, and what the potential future of the game's going to be like, without the hype, without the blinders on, just give you the straight up facts and get amongst all that information. But without rambling on anymore, let's just jump straight into the video now. Recently there was a video posted by Kanon, who, as you know, does a lot of content around MMOs, specifically on the Korean market, and he's quite clued up on everything that's going on over there. And you know, just getting an interview alone with the head of Chrono Odyssey or Chrono Studio is quite a good achievement, and he's definitely asked some valid questions and brought some stuff up a lot of other content creators maybe wouldn't have dabbled into because they're too busy with the hype around the game. Now, he went to the Chrono Studio to interview the executive producer of Chrono Odyssey, and the video posted was part of a larger video, but the main question for his video was, is the game pay to win? He asked this question 3 times, and each time the executive producer replied that there was going to be no pay to win in Chrono Odyssey. He then stated any microtransactions in the game were only for socially oriented content like costumes, emotes, or cosmetic goods, and also a battle pass. Now, this looked like really good news for the MMO genre, as this was basically what everyone's been asking for when it came to monetization from a game that's coming from Korea. Now, the issue with that is later on 2 articles released with both stated different monetization models than the executive producer talked about in the video with Kanon. In the MMORPG.com interview, they asked, if possible, could you speak of some of the monetization in the game? Will it purely appear as skins players can purchase, or will it extend to an expected battle pass and the option to purchase materials for weapon upgrades? Now, Chrono Studio replied with, first and foremost, we want to assure players that we don't need to worry about pay to win elements. Maintaining a fair competitive environment has always been a core principle of our development philosophy. We have no plans to introduce any business models that affect combat performance. Instead, our in-game monetization will focus on cosmetic items and quality of life enhancements, ensuring that gameplay balance remains intact for all players. Chrono Studio replied with, first and foremost, we want to assure players that they don't need to worry about pay to win elements. Maintaining a fair competitive environment has always been a core principle of our development philosophy, and we have no plans to introduce any business models that affect combat performance. Instead, our in-game monetization will focus on cosmetic items and quality in life enhancements, ensuring that the gameplay balance remains intact for all players. So while they do iterate again, there'll be no pay to win elements or pay for power, which is great, and it's definitely a step in the right direction. They did say there would be quality of life enhancements. Now, on the other article that I've came across on the bbsrulyweb.com, they asked, what is the impact of charged items on the balance of the game? For example, are there elements that can be interpreted as pay to win, or whether paid items have potential to affect resource production or the game economic system? Now, Chrono Studio replied, first of all, I would like to say that you don't have to worry about the pay to win factor. Maintaining a fair competitive environment is our unchanging development direction, and we do not consider BM that affects combat performance. As a result, in-game BM will focus on cosmetic items, on convenience improvement elements. So it kind of does mention again that they're going to provide convenience improvement elements, and it's that part that kind of worries me when it kind of comes to the quality of life enhancements or pay for convenience, as it's often called, can still often fail, still be seen as pay to win, depending on what the quality of life enhancements actually are and how it's going to affect the gameplay within the game or people progressing throughout the game, if there is a competitive nature to certain aspects of the PvPM or the PvP or PvP. Now, on another topic I wanted to talk about from Kanon's video is it's the part where they say they're not part of MPixel. Now, I even had this discussion in my own community, and I have with other people, and was kind of corrected, and I thought, wait, did I get something wrong? I was sure these guys were MPixel. I was sure some of the development names kind of ringed a bell and seemed like they were the same company. For all intents and purposes, it just seemed like a subsidiary or a name change. Now, to elaborate on that and give you the accurate information we currently have now that's come out, or you know, when we've been researching and looking and chatting in Discord and actually doing a bit of deep diving into things, this is kind of what we've come across. Now, I do understand it's confused a lot of people, including myself, as if you go back 2 years ago, they were advertising as being part of MPixel, and it even appears in the beginning of the trailers. Some folks said it was a different trailer, that it was maybe Sony or someone else has potentially put this on, but if you actually go on the Chrono Odyssey YouTube, it literally says on the trailer they published, and on other trailers, MPixel. It glides across the screen, you cannot miss it. And if we take a quick look around at the LinkedIn, we can see that Bongun Bear's LinkedIn, he's the co-founder and the CEO of MPixel, and he mentions how MPixel is developing a AAA game called Chrono Odyssey. And on Bongun Bear's Twitter, he lists both Chrono Studio and MPixel in his bio as the CEO and developer. So all of this is where the confusion comes, as MPixel were originally working on the project. So originally Chrono Studio were connected to MPixel, but in February 2024 there was a notice of division and submission. What this basically is a separation of the two companies, and that is why Chrono Studio are not lying when they say they're not part of MPixel, as due to this notice legally, if that's the way you want to look at it, is as of February 2024 they're no longer a part of MPixel and now do operate as their own entity in itself. But what I will add to that, there's no need to worry, because it hasn't really affected Chrono Studio too much, as most of the people developing the game moved over when the separation occurred. You can fully understand why the Reddit warlords and why even me or other people were slightly confused or a bit like skeptical on this, when the same guy who is the founder of MPixel is also the founder of Chrono Studio, is massively connected. I'm almost certain they're actually still in the same building, or were in the same building that MPixel owns, and some of them are on similar floors or the same floor. The guy has literally owned companies and then he's shifted them when they didn't do well, and then when they did well he stayed with them. So there's a lot more we can dive into here for sure, and a lot more we can break down, but I think it was just definitely worded badly when they said they don't understand why these presumptions came that they are connected to MPixel. Obviously the presumptions came for people that weren't wrapped up in the hype and had the smooth brain on the go. It's people that looked into it and used common sense, and unfortunately I do feel like a lot of the times when a new game comes out, the hype is so high, logic and facts go out the window, and if you bring these up, you kind of like get people's backs up because they're so invested in the hype, they're so happy MMOs came along and this is going to be finally the MMO to save the genre, when in reality it's much better going into things critically thinking, looking at information logically, seeing if you're wrong or right and correcting when you are, and then when you go into the game you're not shocked or surprised if they add slight pay to win elements, which I can see happening, and you also find out this background information comes out down the line 2 or 3 months later, and even though we already knew this, the hype wagon jumps on the negative. It's just kind of the way the trends go with these games. For me as a leader of a guild, my job is, I would say, making sure that information is as accurate as possible for members coming in to play the game, and as a content creator I've always said I'm going to try and be factual. I don't want to be blindsided by the hype and kind of just hype. I do want to bring up the necessary information, and I think this is valid. I think this is something you should talk about, and I think it's something we need to be careful of, because right now Chrono Odyssey is almost this perfect entity, and I can promise you Chrono Odyssey is not a perfect entity. Can it have the potential to be in the top 5 or 10 games? Fucking right it can, if they play their cards right. But if they are dishonest or they swear or manipulate certain information for their own agenda, it will inevitably come back to bite them in the ass, and I do not want them doing that. I also think, regardless of this video, it will be one of the biggest MMOs this year, and it has the chance to be up there with some of the biggest MMOs long term if they don't go too heavy on the pay to win, if the development team can pump out the content and they can add more group based content. But I think what we're seeing right now is pretty fucking brilliant, but I'm still optimistically cautious for sure, and I am hyped to play the game, but definitely after being burned so much over the years, I think you just need to go in logically, and if people do find this information out later, there's no need to hate in the game. It doesn't mean the game's gonna flop. It could do amazing, and if it does and the guy keeps going with the game for 4 or 5 years, brilliant. Then they kind of sell this company on, Chrono Studio, that's also fine. It doesn't mean it's the death of it, as long as the same people stay invested and committed to the game. And if these can lead for the first time with very minimal pay to win, eventually the Korean companies might come over and stop all pay to win altogether. And if these guys don't do any pay to win, we are fucking sorted, and we're gonna get some seriously solid MMOs coming, including the likes of Archage Chronicles. So don't see this video as a negative, see it as a factual eye-opener if you've missed some of this information, and I would honestly take this as more of a positive. But you've always got to keep your eyes open for things like this happening and get yourself clued up on the latest actual accurate information that most people don't want to talk about. Hopefully that's give you a bit more of a background on what's going on with the development and the studio, you know, Chrono Studio in general. Hopefully you don't see it as a negative and it's just some good information to have. I'm constantly going to keep following the game like this, being very hypercritical if needed and super positive, and give them kudos where it's due for definite, especially the graphics and what the guys and the communication and what's going on at the minute is pretty fucking amazing. Hopefully you take some positives from this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Yeah, it's slightly different, but I just want to be honest in my opinions and the views, and you know, I don't want to lead anyone astray just to get views. It's not what I'm about on the channel, or not what I'm about myself. But if you do have your opinions or you've got any information I didn't have, drop it in the comment section down below. Drop a like, feel free to give the video a share, and as always, I really appreciate you watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.